A team is not a team if you don't give a damn about one another.
Let's go!
You're listening to the Cage Nation TV Prizefight Podcast. Coming to you from the Candid Cameron Studios in State College, Pennsylvania. Here's your host, Albert Cameron.
Thank you, ladies and gentlemen, for joining us for this week's Prizefight Podcast. I'm your host, Albert Cameron. At the start of the show, a little bit of inspiration, a little heartwarming kick in the ass from Coach Frank Cuozzo from the movie Best of the Best, released in 1989. Of course, Frank Cuozzo was played by James Earl Jones, one of the deepest voice. Oh, I can't even do it. I can't even do a James Earl Jones impersonation, so I'm not even going to try. But he's one of those deep voices that just kind of rattles in your sternum. He's a brilliant actor. And Best of the Best is one of my favorite martial arts movies, hands down. Today on the Prizefight Podcast, ladies and gentlemen, Nevada is going to be requiring that all fighters are going to undergo brain health testing. John Bones Jones has been added to the UFC 200 main event against Daniel DC Cormier. We're going to be crowning the undisputed light heavyweight champion. But before we get into all that, big news out of Pittsburgh. The folks at Gladiators of the Cage have been working really hard about bringing the June 4th card to Stage AE. They've been adding some tremendous fights. At the last tally, 4 title fights. 4. That is big. One of the biggest fights that Gladiators of the Cage has announced this week is that Daniel the Dragon Spawn, UFC veteran, has some Bellator experience. We'll be taking on Jamel the Beast Jones. Jones is a Cage Fury Fighting Championship veteran as well as Bellator. This fight will be for the light heavyweight championship of Gladiators of the Cage. Well, let's break this down, because this got some pretty important stuff going on with it. 1, Daniel Spawn is an absolute stud. You don't step into the octagon, period, without being an elite fighter. I mean, you have to be the ultimate in combat sports in order to get to the UFC. It's not just a clever name. Daniel Spawn has that credential. It has that pedigree. Last time I saw Daniel Spawn fight, he was taking on Louis the Beast Rumsey in Butler, Pennsylvania. Louis Rumsey is a hard-headed individual. It is hard to put him down. Same thing with Daniel Spawn. He's hard to go down. It's hard to put these men on their backside. So Spawn and Rumsey have this absolute slugfest. Spawn gets the best of Rumsey. Jamel Jones, the Beast. So Spawn's going from fighting Louis the Beast Rumsey to taking on Jamel the Beast Jones. Jones has experience in Cage Fury Fighting Championships. Now, to gauge how incredibly important Cage Fury Fighting Championships is, there have been several fighters who have gone into the UFC from the CFFC. Charlie the Spaniard Brenneman, Daryl the Saint Horcher, Kimbo Slice had his first fight for the Cage Fury Fighting Championships. Clearly, the UFC has their pulse on the CFFC, but they also have their fingers on the pulse of Pittsburgh as well. So when I'm telling you about these local fights you need to go to, it's because they all have grand stage implications. Now, in Pennsylvania, we do a couple things very well. 1, our amateurs always come ready to fight. Our amateurs, it must be something in the water, must be something about the Northeast. When our amateurs step into a cage, they always come ready to fight. They're always laying it down. They're always giving their all. 2, we do women's fights incredibly well. I was there for Kern versus O'Neill. Courtney Kern versus Maggie O'Neill. The first women's fight in Central Pennsylvania. I was there for Jamie Chesney versus Jessica Richmond. Melissa Gazdick. Spinning back fist knockout. Melissa Gazdick. Our women in Pennsylvania aren't just tremendous athletes. They are tremendous fighters. And can't really call it women's MMA because it's just MMA, regardless of gender. Clearly, our women have knockout power. Our female athletes have stopping power. They have gas tanks. That's one of those things Pennsylvania does really well. 3rd, Pennsylvania has a lock on lighter fighters. Our bantamweights, our featherweights, our lightweights, that is our tremendous wheelhouse. So, with Daniel Spawn versus Jamel the Beast Jones being at light heavyweight, 1, it's a rarity to see because our light heavyweight division has been few and far between. 2, they're fighting for the light heavyweight championship. The last light heavyweight champion that Gladiators of the Cage and maybe Pittsburgh has been Chris Dempsey. And we all know where he went. He went to the UFC. Chris Dempsey won the Gladiators of the Cage light heavyweight championship against... That was my drum roll, by the way, against Louis the Beast Rumsey. So all these fights are tying into each other. Daniel Spawn versus Jamel the Beast Jones for a title that has been coveted by light heavyweights that Chris Dempsey went to the UFC, and of course, a lot of our fighters are hungry to get to that next stage. Also coming up on the Gladiators of the Cage June 4th card at Stage AE, Anthony the Genius Romero will be taking on Izzy Williams. Now, Anthony the Genius Romero, that name should sound familiar. He just fought a big fight at the Pinnacle FC event at the Sirius Shrine in Cheswick, Pennsylvania, where he fought Fadi Schumann. Now, just to put this into perspective, Fadi Schumann is a mat factory guy, and just like the super gyms of yore, like the Lion's Den, like the Militich Fighting Systems, like the Jackson Winks MMA, the Mat Factory, Cherico MMA Academy, these camps here in Pittsburgh are producing tough guys. Out of the Mat Factory, Chris Dempsey, Dominic Mazzata, Fadi Schumann is in that same cloth. And Anthony Romero took that fight to Schumann. It wasn't a blowout. It wasn't a complete ass kicking. It wasn't one-sided. But Romero was the clear and understood victor. Anthony the Genius Romero, coming from Canada, will be fighting Izzy Williams for the Gladiators of the Cage Amateur Lightweight Championship. Now, I know what you guys are thinking. Now, you're probably not thinking that. I'm weird with facts and figures like this. The last time Gladiators of the Cage had crowned a lightweight champion, lightweight being at 155 pounds, was when Ethan the Wolverine Goss fought Lenny Karlheim at Road to Glory in Johnstown, Pennsylvania at the Johnstown War Memorial. A lot of history's happened since then. Goss got the title. He won the fight, but he did move back down to featherweight. He abandoned the title. Him and Goss are now, Goss and Karlheim are now teammates under the Dignan Brumbaugh Fight Team banner. Now, at Gladiators of the Cage Stage EE, June 4th, Gladiators of the Cage will be crowning a new amateur lightweight champion. Romero clearly comes to fight. Izzy Williams, prepared warrior himself, because in Pennsylvania we don't do mismatches. And we can thank that to the diligence, the painstaking diligence of the Pennsylvania State Athletic Commission for not allowing mismatches to happen. If they think it's going to be a blowout, the fight doesn't go on. That's just how it is. It was also announced that Pittsburgh veteran Eric Bledsoe, of course, is a veteran of the Pinnacle FC, Gladiators of the Cage, and King of the Cage, which has been taking their stake in Pittsburgh. Eric Bledsoe will be taking on Jeff Holmes. Jeff Holmes, of course, is a veteran of Gladiators of the Cage, Complete Devastation MMA, as well as others. Jeff Holmes sticks out in my mind with victories over Ryan Goosely Glunt and Brad the Machine Gun Mountain. Now, here's what I absolutely like about this fight. Both these guys are contenders. If they're not championship caliber yet, they certainly will be. They both stick out as being competent athletes. I got to call one of Jeff Holmes' fights once. It was actually Holmes versus Mountain. I was on the commentary team. Jeff Holmes is a very respectful guy. He's very respectful. He's very humble. He's very approachable. You wouldn't believe that a guy like that, when he gets into the cage, has some really dangerous striking, has real cage ability, and he does. So I'm really excited to be seeing Eric Bledsoe versus Jeff Holmes. Of course, the fight card not even close to being done. Gladiators of the Cage, June 4th, Stage AE. They're going to be announcing fights as this goes on. This is not complete by any stretch of the imagination. Of course, Jordan Rinaldi will still be taking on Joey the Hitman Holt for Gladiators of the Cage Gold, June 4th at Stage AE. Nevada is going to be requiring that all fighters are going to be undergoing brain health testing. Now, this is coming from a study, active research, going to try to search for measures to prevent long-term brain damage in prize fighters. Of course, Will Smith had that movie come out about the NFL, concussions. It looks like it's a big ordeal. Brain health is absolutely a big ordeal. Having your wits about you, preventing soft tissue damage, the long-term health and longevity of people who are fighting is absolutely paramount. And this study, this activity, the motions we're taking to make sure that prize fighters have long-term brain health, absolutely. I will support it every day of the week. This is perfect. Now, of course, Nevada is being the linchpin in MMA legislation. Nevada sanctioned the unified rules before anyone did. It was Nevada, New Jersey, and then a couple other ones. So I think Nevada's onto something. I think when Nevada makes a motion for testing, for procedure, other states get involved. Now, it comes down, we're going to have the same old argument again, and this is one of those times where, it's probably a good idea that we have this argument. Is mixed martial arts safer than boxing? And we ask that in the context of, is MMA safer than boxing in the term of brain damage, of long-term brain health? If it comes down to it, you have two guys standing in front of each other, ready to punch each other in the head until one of them stops fighting back. That is the long and the short of it. The old MMA argument was, boxing allows a standing 8 count. So when a guy keeps getting knocked down, gets back up, knocked down, get back up, get knocked down, get back up, that's where soft tissue damage occurs. But if you think about what kind of force does someone throw a punch with? Now, our athletes are professional. They train, and this sort of health testing, this brain health testing, these measures being taken to make sure that guys are catching any problems early, this is perfect. Because as much as I enjoy fighting, I want to make sure the guys who are fighting are taking care of themselves in the long run. And I think this brain health testing is going to be a step in the long-term longevity of our sports, whether it be boxing, whether it be MMA. Our fighters are going to live longer. They're going to be much healthier. They're going to be able to compete because MMA is mixed martial arts. You can think of it you can think of it as a fight. You can also think of it as a competition. So our fighters are going to be able to compete much longer when we're taking that in, when we're being conscious of that. John Bones Jones will be taking on Daniel DC Cormier at UFC 200. He will be replacing Nick Diaz versus Conor McGregor in the main event. And if you read my opinion piece at CageNationTV.com this week, you know that I've had just about all I'm going to take of the McGregor versus UFC. Is he on the main event? Isn't he? Because frankly, for me, who cares at this point? I really believe that it was a hissy fit. John Jones was victorious over Ovince St. Preux at UFC 197. Daniel D.C. Cormier was injured. He could not compete. So St. Preux was brought up. They're going to fight for the UFC Interim Light Heavyweight Championship. John Jones was accused of not being as slick as John Jones usually is. Now, you know that after John Jones' legal problems, coming back into getting into competition, he's posting a lot of things on Instagram. Hey guys, look how much I can bench. Hey guys, look how swole I'm getting. Look how buff I'm getting. Look how chiseled and cut I am. A lot of folks are coming to the offensive saying, hey, all that strength training you were doing didn't leave you as limber as what you usually are. Now, you could always make the argument, was it the strength training or was it cage rest? The guy has not been in the cage for a long time since his initial issues with suspension, being stripped of the title. The bout will crown the undisputed UFC light heavyweight champion of the world, Daniel D.C. Cormier versus John Bones Jones. And as many issues as I have with John Jones and his public persona, John Jones has to be applauded because he is stepping up to the UFC 200 main event when the event could have been scrapped. He just fought at UFC 197, so he has essentially 3 months to train for Cormier to come back. And you know what? As many issues as I have with the guy, good for you, John Jones. Ladies and gentlemen, that's my time. Make sure you check out CageNationTV.com this week, where on the Friday 5, we counted down 5 of the best underdog stories in MMA. Thank you for joining us for the Prizefight podcast. I'm your host, Albert Cameron, and until next time, fights, Cameron, action. Thank you for tuning in to the Cage Nation Prizefight podcast. All rights reserved, 2015-2016 Planetary Sports. The Prizefight podcast is part of the Cage Nation Broadcast Network. For more information, visit www.cagenationtv.com.